Hey guys, Cam here from PhoneDog.com, and it is Throwback Thursday. And it gives us another chance to look back at one of the most iconic smartphones or phones of our lifetime. And the one I'm turning my attention to this week is one that you may instantly recognize, or at least you should instantly recognize. This is the original T-Mobile Sidekick, otherwise known as the Danger Hiptop. It was launched in 2002, and afterwards, and the following generations that came, it became one of the most noticeable, or at least one of the most recognizable phones on the market. Now, when you pick it up in your hand, the first thing you're going to notice more than likely is just how thick it is. This thing is 1.1 inches thick. That's about as thick as 3.5 iPhones. It was also 4.5 inches long and 2.6 inches wide, so it was not a small device, particularly in those days when most phones were really quite tiny. It looked more like a Game Boy than a phone. But if you bought one of these, you more than likely didn't care about that anyway, because you bought this for two reasons. Number one was the unique swivel flip-out screen. On the original Sidekick, you simply push the screen upwards and it would rotate round and flip over to the other side, revealing a physical QWERTY keypad underneath. But what made it really effective was that there wasn't anything like this on the market apart from this. Nothing had this unique design, nothing had that kind of swivel out 180-degree flip out display. It was very recognizable. It was very, very one-of-a-kind-ish. And in the US, obviously it launched exclusively on T-Mobile. And it was this movement on the display, the flipping out, that kind of gave the device its name. It was smooth and fast, it didn't feel cheap or nasty, but it felt really cool. It had a nice resounding sort of thud when you spun it round. It looked amazing, and you're pretty sure that if you got your Sidekick out at a party and you flipped the screen around, then people would almost certainly ask you questions about it or be drawn to it and want to know exactly what it is you were using. And you could say, I'm using a Sidekick, the same phone that Hannah Montana probably uses. The second thing that people love about the Sidekick, obviously, is the keyboard. It had a full QWERTY keyboard, and the keys themselves were really nicely spaced out. They were made out of some really odd rubbery material, which made typing on them feel quite spongy, but still, typing on the keyboard was actually quite nice. Because the keys were well spaced out, like I already mentioned, you can type quickly and effectively without really making many mistakes. Other physical controls included the jump, menu and back keys, which all had their own symbols, and there was the really awesome scroll wheel, which lit up loads of different colours. So depending on whether you got a notification or if you're powering the device up, switching it off, plugging it into charge, it was a completely transparent plastic, and there was a light placed underneath it that would flash all sorts of bright colours like pink and blue and green and yellow. Really rather cool. And as a sort of novelty side feature, it also had this bonus camera which you would clip into the 3.5mm headphone jack and take really rubbish black and white pictures. Of course, cameras don't really make sense when you have a small and really not very sharp monochromatic display, but it was a really nice little novelty thing. It was something you could join in with your friends with and just have fun. Nobody really used this thinking they were ever going to take fantastic award-winning National Geographic photos, but it made the experience of using a Sidekick just interesting. And then we get onto the software. The software was designed by the hardware manufacturers, Danger OS as it's called, and the phone itself actually needed to use Danger's own back-end servers in a similar way to old Blackberries used to use BlackBerry internet services. And that was all well and good until Danger decided to switch the servers off in 2011, leaving anyone who possibly had an old Sidekick not able to use their phone. So although at the time it had AOL Messenger, email, browser and other data services, actually if you didn't have Danger's actual server supporting you, then you couldn't make use of any of those. And the operating system itself was fairly easy to use. You used the scroll wheel to scroll up and down through the home menu, and then click the scroll wheel to select. You also had a menu button so that if you didn't see an option on the screen, press the menu button and a menu would pop up on the display, and you could scroll through that and change settings. It was very, very simple, and it had to be because its primary audience it was aiming at were quite young, communicative, people that were addicted to Messenger, people that like texting and emailing and instant messaging. That was the market that Sidekick went for. which is probably why I never had one. I saw myself as being far too serious a phone nerd to ever use a Sidekick. And yet 12 years later, I'm kind of wishing Sidekick still existed and that I had one. Since the original Sidekick, we've seen many variants. And a lot of them actually weren't Sidekicks at all. Some of them had slide up screens instead of ones that actually kicked out. So although it was still called a Sidekick, it didn't actually have a screen that sidekicked. The latest version of the Sidekick, of course, was the Android version, which wasn't designed particularly well, and it was pretty much just a pale imitation of the original. You really have to go back a few generations before you get back to a true Sidekick. What a Sidekick should be, it should be interesting and quirky and fun. It should have a good keyboard, it should have a screen that swivels 180 degrees in both directions. And if there was one device I wish could come back and be different again and be a fully fledged smartphone with the same kind of design, the Sidekick is that phone. But then the question is, who would manufacture it? Would we want Android running on it, or would you rather have someone like BlackBerry take it on? I think that would be cool, however impossible that might be. So the Sidekick, probably one of the most iconic handsets that never really caught on. One that certainly didn't ever live up to its potential. What do you think of the original Sidekick? Did you own one? Did you own one of the other generation, newer models? Let us know in the comments section down below, or get me on Twitter. I'm at PhoneDog_Cam, and I look forward to hearing from you. I'll see you again soon.